Neurofeedback feels like the hot new kid on the block when it comes to treating childhood trauma. It's mentioned in The Body Keeps the Score. I've seen papers on it. I've heard anecdotal stories that it's been very helpful, but it didn't work for me. And in this video, I'll tell you why. Hi, I'm Rohan from Trauma Lab and I Get It. I'm here to help you spot and finally move beyond the symptoms of childhood trauma to live a fuller and more fulfilling life. Now, after years of missteps and treatments that didn't work, it's hard, isn't it, trying to find something that can relieve the symptoms of childhood trauma. We often get left needing a magic bullet of some description or looking for something that's going to be a quick fix because we're so desperate and we need relief so much. So when I heard about neurofeedback, I was obviously very excited. It makes complete sense. The brain is wired wrongly because of the injury we received as children when our brain was developing. And this technique would give the brain pointers. It would stop favouring the parts of the brain that should only be activated in times of real danger and start instead creating new pathways to the front of the brain, to the new part, to the part that gives us clarity and calm and perspective. And it's very enticing, isn't it, that you would just sit there, watch your favourite programme and something else would do the work for you. So I contacted a local practitioner who came over to the Trauma Lab and she put nodes on my head on specific parts to monitor different brainwave activity. And she had a laptop which the feedback from my brain was going into, and the laptop was also connected to my TV. On there she put a documentary I was interested in. If anyone's interested, it was Blur, the music band Blur documentary. Now what happened as I was sitting there watching the TV was that the screen size kept shrinking and the image would darken and get brighter and the picture would widen again. And this was in order that my brain would get feedback as to when it was behaving in an optimum fashion, the clarity of the picture and the size would be restored, and when it wasn't acting in my best interest, the screen would shrink and it would be harder for me to engage with the content that I wanted to engage in. And during the sessions, yeah, I felt quite calm. Obviously I enjoyed the Blur documentary, and even after the first session she went away and I felt okay. I felt quite sharp, if anything. I thought, great, this is everything that people talk about and more. This is so easy and I'm feeling calm and I'm feeling focused and this is good. And what she explained was that in that session, she was just trying me at different frequencies to see which my brain and body responded best to. And it's all done just on your feedback. So she'll try a different frequency, she'll ask you how you feel, you'll say, yes, I feel calmer or not, and then that will dictate what frequency she tries next. Now, to be honest, I only felt calm throughout. I didn't feel that different in the session. There wasn't much to go on, to be honest. And it was the second session where the issues began. She tried new frequencies, I believe lower frequencies than we'd done before. And in the session, I started to get a bit of a headache and I reported this back and she kind of tweaked and went back and forth. Anyway, after the session, I had terrible symptoms. I mean, my anxiety was flaring up. I actually had a headache, and that's not a symptom I normally have. And worst of all, I had tinnitus. And I do kind of suffer with low-level tinnitus, but this was really noticeable, and what it did is it just reinforced my fear loop. So I explained this to the practitioner and basically she came back and said, all we need to do is put you at the previous session 1 frequency and that will resolve things. And so I had another session, no change. I had a final session where they tried something else, so the 4th session, no change. I was struggling because if anything, this was making my CPTSD symptoms worse than ever. My sleep was disturbed and to be honest, I just had a really bad time. And it turns out I'm not the only one. I hit up Reddit and I looked, there was a CPTSD neurofeedback section. I read some posts, there was similar stories. There was one poor person who had the similar reactions to me, worsening of symptoms, and the practitioner just kept going and going and reassuring And unfortunately, they retain the symptoms to this day, which I cannot imagine how bad that is for them. So my feelings with neurofeedback is that clearly it does work for some people, and great. But if it doesn't work for you and you are getting worse symptoms, then do stop immediately. You know, I think the issue is that they just do not have the technology at the moment to make it a safe treatment for everyone. You know, they rely on you to tell them if it's working or not. And if you give positive feedback, they carry on. And if you give negative feedback, they move and try a different placement. But it is somewhat trial and error. They try that and then they wait for your feedback. I think when it comes to a point that the technology is there, that they can monitor that, they can monitor your autonomic response without you having to be the conduit to tell them. Because often we don't know if we're feeling better, if something that is on set or that is done to us is making us feel better, or if it's just an underlying thing. I don't think this is a good enough proxy at the moment. So until there is better feedback technology, I won't be trying neurofeedback again. I feel that the regulation of the industry as a whole isn't there quite yet either, and that there needs to be better care taken of people that do have complex needs, who have complex conditions like we do. So I wanted to share this experience with you so that you could make your informed decisions based on real life experience, because I didn't find that much out there. And I'm with you as ever, every step of the way in your recovery.